Right, it's all right. Hello and welcome to Mondays with Ginell and Unqualified Comics. Before we get started, as always, I want you to go over to Amazon.com and buy one of my books because, god damn it, they're good and you should support good comics, and that's the only way I make any money. But in the meantime, we're going to entertain you by talking about New Mutants, the Disaster, and the Classics. The classic that what it was and the disaster apparently it became in a movie. So I
I'm really
guess
scared.
you're really scared.
Yes.
Now, Janelle's read the New Mutants comics, but it's been a long time. I've read a fair amount of them, but not nearly as many as our guests. And Unqualified appears to be kind of the expert of the three of us. So he's
I
probably
will
going to be leading
qualify
me.
that statement by saying I'm really a fan of the original 100 issue run that was Claremont, Simonson, and then at the end Liefeld. The later runs, like the volume 2, volume 3 stuff, like in the aughts, I don't really know that much about. But the first 100 is kind of what matters anyway.
Sadly, my introduction to New Mutants was my husband. I actually came into comics when it was X-Force, and I was like, these are the most steroid-induced, batshit teenagers. I hope they all die. And then my husband, after he found out, he gave me his New Mutants. He's like, no, 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 no. You need to read New Mutants. And then I read New Mutants. I was like, what the fuck happened? Then I found out it was Liefeld fucked them up.
Yeah.
Another Liefeld disaster.
Yeah.
He's been fixing his mistakes. I'm giving him credit. He's been trying to go back and fix stuff. I appreciate it, but yeah. Oof.
Unlike the plague that is Jim Lee.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's another one. Like I came in after you guys. Like right when you guys quit is when I came in. So I came in the early '90s. So for me, it was like a treat to go backwards. So I thought it was already awesome when I started, and then I went back and I was like, holy shit, it was even better. So I mean, for me, I know for everybody else, like, oh God, I'm watching it fall apart. And for me, I'm just like, holy shit, this is great.
So let's give a quick rundown. What is the New Mutants?
So basically, the New Mutants are, to put it in like general terms, they're like the JV team of the X-Men was the original intention of it, and it was essentially when they were kind of back in the '80s when the X-Men were stupidly hot as a comic book property. Like they were selling crazy number of Uncanny X-Men.
I like that description. Stupidly hot. I like that. I'm keeping that.
Yeah, they were selling, like when they talk about when comics were hot month to month, the 80s, especially the Marvel in the 80s under Jim Shooter, was really the hallmark of when they were talking about comics were great. So Jim Shooter, and he really actually is the guy who should be given credit for why the New Mutants exist, because initially he gave the command to Chris Claremont and Louise Simonson, who were basically running the X books at the time, that, hey, we need another X book. And honestly, the X-Men are kind of old. Most of them were not. The only young X-Men was Kitty Pryde, and the vast majority of the team was already adults. And it was like Professor Xavier's school for gifted kids, but it's not really a school because all these guys are already like adults and aged up, right? So he kind of said, hey, we need a younger mutant team, and I want you to make a book, creating a brand new young mutant team. And actually, funny enough, Chris Claremont was actually against it initially. I think that was just more of Jim Shooter. He was known to be a bit abrasive to a lot of people at Marvel at the time. But eventually he got teamed up with Bob McLeod, and they created the New Mutants. And the first book was actually released as a Marvel graphic novel back in the days when Marvel was very innovative in the 80s, and they came up with their graphic novel line. And I think it's Marvel graphic novel number 4, The New Mutants. And it's a great book, by the way, to pick up. Because in the first 4 or 5 pages, it's just a freaking clinic on Claremont classic writing. He literally does the backstory for every New Mutant within the first 6 pages. Just classic American comic book storytelling.
Not only that, most of the backstories for the characters are really fucking tragic. Like it opens up, these kids are all traumatized in one way or another. Which was, I mean, you hadn't seen that before. like this was more dark than the original X-Men or even the giant size X-Men when the second wave came through, the international team, like
Yeah,
Storm, Nightcrawler. I mean, like that was when I first read that. That was some brutal shit. Like I mean, what was it? Karma went through the killing fields,
yeah.
and
So
Sam. Yeah, go ahead.
well, Karma actually, believe it or not, and this is kind of funny, Karma actually came from a different epic. I think it was Marvel Team Up number 100 was where Karma came in. She actually was introduced through a Spider-Man Fantastic Four crossover. And yeah, no, Karma is an amazing character. First off, I don't know if she is or isn't. I think she's one of the first Vietnamese American comic book characters. And she was actually the daughter of a South Vietnamese colonel. And, her father was one of the good guys in South Vietnam, but her uncle was a piece of shit. He was one
That's
of
the
those
guy
guys.
Madripoor, right?
Yeah.
He's the guy that fights against Tiger for control
Yeah.
of Madripoor.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. And basically, her father ends up dying, and then she ends up becoming one of the boat people. And I don't know how the fuck, and this is Marvel Team Up 100 with Frank Miller and Chris Claremont. I don't know how the fuck they got this in a Comics Code Authority book back in the 80s. But Karma and I believe either her mom or her sister get raped on the boat
Holy crap.
by the Thai
Oh yeah,
pirates.
no, I remember it because they put the flashback to that in New Mutants #1
Yeah,
when
yeah,
she's and it shows it, and I was like, holy shit!
yeah.
I'd
No,
never
it,
seen anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they did it within the confines of the Comics Code Authority that they could kind of bend it. I mean, back in the '80s, people yell about Jim Shooter being a tyrant, but he let people really push the limit of comics in the '80s and Marvel. And I think he doesn't really get a lot of credit. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of credit, period, for how much he contributed to American comics back in the '80s. But yeah, no, I don't know how he had the fucking balls to let Frank Miller and Chris Claremont do that,
Because
let
it was
alone
Frank
Chris
Miller and
Claremont.
Chris Claremont.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it was yeah, it was 100 Marvel Team Up number 100, which is actually a really fucking hard comic to get. Unfortunately, typical Marvel, they make everything ridiculously hard to get. But yeah, that's it goes over her backstory, and New Mutants #1 also goes over it as well. And yeah, so they go over all the characters. So let's just go over the characters. The first one that they introduced was Rain Sinclair, which I mispronounce her name literally every time because the English in my head won't allow me to pronounce it correctly.
You're not the only one. I know it's pronounced differently, but I can only say it Rahane or Rain.
Yeah, see, you're better than me. I was stuck in my own head mispronouncing it as Ron forever.
Oh,
And I was like, and then somebody corrected me one time, and I was like, fuck, I've been fucking up the whole time. I hate that shit when I do that. But yeah, it's Rain Sinclair, and she's introduced as a really shy and demure Scottish girl. And when you're introduced to her, she's in her wolfen form. So her mutant power is she's kind of a werewolf lycanthropic character, and she actually has two forms. She has one where she's kind of in between both human and werewolf or wolf form, which is very useful when I explain some other characters' powers, and then one where she's full wolf. And she's basically being chased by her pastor priest and all of the religious folk in the city. And she's saved by Moira McTaggart, who says, "Hey, because of her experience with mutants, that you can't just send this girl to death just for being what she is."
And
And
yet
that's yeah. Sorry, go
and
ahead.
and yet the thing that also really stood out to me about her specifically is even after all of that, even after going to Professor X's school, after meeting the mutants and learning the nature of her ability, she still struggled with feeling like somehow she was damned and that she was an abomination.
Oh yeah, her religious upbringing is a big part of her character. She still
well, wasn't
remains
her
very strictly Christian. I'm sorry, go ahead.
wasn't her adopted father the psycho pastor that was chasing her down with the rest of the townspeople and told her that she was a demon?
I think so. I don't remember
I
that detail, but yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a big part of her character, and even with the rest of the mutants. I mean, as a great example, another character, Magik, who basically is almost a half demon in the story.
Yeah.
Like, Rain has a big problem dealing with her because she just cannot trust her because she just sees her as she's the devil.
Yeah, Rain's upbringing and that like the hardcore Catholic, like the fundamentalist Catholicism, is really impactful because if I remember correctly, she also shits her pants the first time she sees Nightcrawler.
Oh yeah, yeah. But the same thing with Kitty Pryde, right? That's like a
Yeah.
common theme with Nightcrawler that Chris always had, was that Nightcrawler is actually a really great guy and a fun dude, but like all the women he meets are fucking terrified of him.
Except for his adopted sister, his foster sister that he was banging for the longest time, Amanda
Yeah,
Sefton,
because
the
she's like
witch.
a she's a sorcerer basically.
That
She's
was
like
a
a
weird relationship.
It was, but honestly, like in my mind, I always imagine that Nightcrawler, even though he has the background of him being very devout, I always think of him more of a playboy,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, that's more in line with the original Claremont interpretation of the character. He always has him kind of swashbuckling, going around doing adventures and stuff. And I always
Like
loved that, despite his background of basically getting fucked in terms of like the life lottery, he just has fun with it the whole time.
his personality, his charisma make up for the fact that he looks like a demon because he got so much ass in the X-Men comic books. He
Oh
got
yeah,
Amanda Sefton.
oh yeah.
He almost got Megan away from Captain Britain. He got Cerise. Who else did he get? I think he had Deathbird for a while. Or was that Bishop? He got somebody else. And then he ended up with Rachel Summers for the longest time.
Yeah, that was Excalibur, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, him and that's why I love that in the initial the initial X Men. Not to sidetrack too much, he's always partnered up with Colossus because those two are just like, they're
The
great.
naive farm boy who
Yeah.
has no idea what the world is like, and the guy that worships Errol Flynn. Yeah, yeah,
Oh man, it was a good combo. Like Chris Claremont, he had layers to him. It was kind of great. But anyway, getting
yeah.
back to the
And
New
he was a
Mutants.
pervert. That was
Yeah.
another good thing about him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, you see it now when you go back, but you're kind of like, oh, I see you, Chris Claremont, a man of culture. Oh man, but
Okay,
yeah,
so
going back, there was Rain, and then the next character they introduced is Roberto da Costa, which everyone just calls him Bobby, who ends up being Sunspot. Yeah, I keep forgetting. Like Claremont interchanges the name and the hero names constantly, so sometimes you just end up calling the characters by their first name, even though it's like,
Yeah.
oh, Wolfsbane, Sunspot, Cannonball. Danny's multiple different names, just kind of like Lady Pride.
Psyche, Mirage. No, Psyche. Yeah, Psyche, Mirage, and something else.
Something else. I think she
Yeah.
stuck to Mirage at the end. But it's kind of like how Kitty Pryde had like 4 different fucking superhero names.
Ariel, Sprite. Yeah.
Shadow Cat, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's just Kitty Pryde. But yeah, there's so you get introduced to him, and he's Brazilian, and typical, stereotypical Brazilian opening. He's playing a soccer match, for his high school, and during the match, he basically gets cheap shotted by one of the opposing team, and then it activates his mutant power, which is ability to absorb the sun and basically become like almost a black sunspot, and it gives him like superhuman strength, which freaks everybody the fuck out on the soccer field, and he doesn't know what's going on when it happens, and eventually just faints from exhaustion of using his power, and it causes both his parents and his girlfriend is also introduced during that thing to freak out at the same time. And then the other character that gets introduced is Sam Guthrie. He's introduced as just a poor white kid from Kentucky, and really tragic. His father had just recently passed away from black lung, and he wanted to go to college, but he had a big family and he needed to help out his mom, so he decided to give up on college and go work in the mines to pay for his family's living. And when they have an accident in the coal mine, and everyone escapes except for one of his father's old friend who's stuck down there. And Sam, like in a heroic effort, decides, fuck it, I'm not going to leave, people that are essentially family to me behind. So he runs down there and he gets yelled at like, oh, you're going to die just like your father, and then, in that moment of stress, he unlocks his power, which basically he becomes like a cannonball, which becomes his name. He's almost like a human projectile that he's invulnerable when he's blasting. So he literally blasts a hole right through the mine as it's collapsing and drags his father's friend out with him. And it's by the way, all of these introductions get fucked up by the movie, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But great freaking character, and a great, I guess, mirror to all of the other characters, all their different backgrounds. Right, this was like the 1980s, and you basically had like United Nations team coming in as the New Mutants. It was freaking great.
Yeah, all that bitching about there's no diversity in comics and there never
Yeah.
has been, I always point my finger right at the X-Men. I'm like, yeah, one of the leaders of the X-Men was a Kenyan worshipped as a goddess, and she became the best leader of the X-Men throughout the 80s. So yeah, shut up.
Oh yeah, I
There
mean,
was no shortage of diversity in you name it. It's all been done and done better in the 80s and 90s. It's just, let's be honest.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I to me, I like the brilliance of it. I think Claremont knew that the team was just way too international, and he needed a character that was more down to earth, that was going to be someone that American readers would relate to. And I think Sam is like probably one of the greatest character designs I've like ever seen. You know, next to the next one I'm going to talk about, which is Danny Moonstar, and that's the next character that Claremont introduced. So Danny or Danielle Moonstar is basically Cheyenne, Lakota, Native American, and she's from Colorado. And she basically is living on her own because she's become an outcast from the tribe because her mutant powers came out a lot earlier than others. And her ability is to basically bring about, you know, through mental psychic powers to bring about your worst fear. And so she didn't know how to control her powers when she was young, and so she would terrorize people without knowing it because it would bring up their worst memories, their most traumatic experiences. By the way, this also gets a little fucked up in the movie as well, but you know, I mean, I think the whole character's just miscast in the movie in general. And the cool thing about Danny Moonstar is, even though she's Native American, etc., Chris Claremont doesn't try to, you know, write her with like kitty gloves. He really writes Danny as a human being, and she has like all kinds of character flaws and mistakes in the first couple issues, but she grows into essentially become the Storm of the New Mutants. Really great character arc that she has throughout the entire run, and definitely my favorite character out of them. I like all of them, but I really like Danny a lot. So the New Mutants movie really pisses me off because it goes over the Demon Bear saga and it just fucks it up.
See that really, my
Yep.
husband and I were really excited about that at first, and then when it kept getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, we realized, oh, they fucked it up. So that was when we were like, yeah, no.
Yeah. Anyhow, I
So
think. Sorry, go ahead.
there is one that you missed, and there was
Oh,
that very brief period in which Shadowcat was having a complete shit fit about being thrown into the New Mutants
oh
after being in the
yeah.
X Men.
Professor Xavier is a jerk.
Oh
That
yeah,
one.
dude.
Yeah, that was the first page. You open it
Yes.
up, and that's the first line.
I know.
She's
Like,
pointing the finger at the audience, you know, that like fourth wall breaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you know what's great about that is that kind of established what Claremont was kind of trying to go with the New Mutants. In many ways, he was kind of trying to put a chip on their shoulder to begin with. That it's just like, oh yeah, it's the JV team, you know, those guys. That's why like Kat like basically shits on them the first time she meets them, and they kind of like, you know, Danny doesn't take it either from her, so she kind of throws it back at you. It's like, well, if you don't want to join, then screw you.
Yeah.
And it's great. Eventually, they, you know, like she ends up being friends with all of them, and especially, you know, since Magik joins them, because in the comics, Magik and Kitty Pryde are very, very close friends, which doesn't really get explored in any of the other media. But
really, it didn't. That doesn't come up at all.
not really. I mean, the character Magik doesn't really get shown a lot.
Okay, she's one of the most interesting characters of the New Mutants because she's such a wild card,
Oh yeah,
and
You
they
never
don't
know
even
if she's going to screw him over or not when she becomes Darkchild.
right.
yeah. Oh man, Magik is another amazing. Like all these characters are really good, but Magik is another great character that initially she wasn't in. I don't think she was intended to be there. But it just made sense considering her age. But yeah, if you've never read the Magik miniseries, that
Oh my
Claremont,
God, I love that
yeah,
miniseries.
yeah, it is. So I will say this: it is Claremont being like in his old school wordy, you know, like form. So it is a wordy miniseries, but it's still really goddamn good. So if you haven't read it, yeah, totally pick that up. That's a great one right there to check out. And then that kind of explains how she ends up getting her powers. And then later on, she ends up dragging the New Mutants into her own problems and ends up becoming a New Mutants by de facto. And she ends up playing a really big role in all of their adventures in the early Claremont era. But anyway, we've been kind of talking about the background of it. Do you want to
Yeah,
just
okay, let's hear the train wreck now. I think that's what people
So
want. People want to hear us trash this thing, and you're the only one that's seen it. So rip into it.
So here's the problem with the movie. The movie gets the premise of all of their character backgrounds correct, but then it fucks it up by just going way too far the other direction in terms of how dark they were. And their backgrounds were already dark, but ultimately Claremont understood that they still had to be heroes in order for people to really like them, right? So the first thing that they fuck up is Sam's background. So Sam, rather than being someone who saved his father's coworker by discovering his mutant powers and blasting off, he instead ends up being the cause for what kills his father and all the coworkers in the mine. So in the movie, he breaks through the mine and kills everybody because he causes the mine collapse. So basically, they start off Sam's a murderer, and that's the reason. That's the first fuck up. Then Bobby, instead of being a guy who accidentally discovers his power during a soccer match and freaks everybody out and becomes a pariah because of it, he discovers his power when he's with his girlfriend, and they change his power to him getting super strength to him basically being as hot as the sun. So he burns his girlfriend to death. So they
Oh God, you're killing me.
Yeah, so Bobby's a murderer, Sam's a murderer, and then Rain, she finds basically when the village or the religious church that she's a part of turn on her, rather than running away to Moira, she turns into a wolf and kills everybody.
So, what the fuck's wrong with these people?
Oh my God, I'm scared to hear what Magik and Danny did.
So Danny, here's the deal. Like you have to watch the whole movie to kind of realize that Danny's also a murderer. And that's what pissed me off at the end. I was like, God fucking damn it. So when you start off, Danny's being awakened by her father in like the reservation or something, and then they're running into the moon because they're basically the entire reservation town is getting attacked by the demon bear, right? And she runs away, and basically falls unconscious in the winter. And that's how she ends up at the school, which, by the way, isn't Professor Xavier's school. It's actually just some fake school run by the Essex Corporation. But by the way, Mr. Sinister doesn't show up, so don't get excited. So, yeah, and what you realize is at the end, they kind of reveal that the demon bear is actually just a manifestation of her power, which, they think is like, oh, that's really cool. Then you think back, it's like, so Danny killed her parents, is what you're saying? You're like, God damn it, this movie's fucking terrible.
Okay, what's Magik's background though? I gotta hear this.
So Magik, they don't really explain too much of like they don't tie her to Colossus, which I think was really lame, because that's kind of what made her important to the X-Men. Instead, she was just kind of like basically tortured by like some crazy group of smiley head cultists, and it caused her to go psychotic and get demon powers and all kinds of other stuff. By the way, Lockheed the dragon is like a puppet that she talks to like a crazy bitch. By the way, the chick who plays Magik, I think her name was Anya. The one, she's like the bitch who's in all the new movies now. Sorry, I don't like any of the actors. The only actor that really is good is the one who plays Sam. And though I think he just tried to do the best that he could with the fucked up role that he had.
Charlie something. He's on Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. He
plays the older brother in Stranger Things.
Yeah, I think he did a good job, but it was not Sam, and he just executed what he could, right? And then the Lockheed the dragon is a hand puppet that
Really?
Magik just talks to like a crazy bitch the entire movie. And then when she gets her demon powers and teleports to Limbo and gets her armor and everything because nostalgia, then it becomes the actual Lockheed. Which, again, doesn't even make sense why Lockheed's in the movie, because Lockheed is always associated in the comics with Kitty Pryde. So it's just one of those, what the fuck? Even then, like, I don't understand why Karma's not in the movie, because Karma was part of the original New Mutants. And she was, in my opinion, important to the beginning, and also honestly for all of these left-wing nut jobs, Karma's background actually is something they probably could have done with in the movie. But my guess is it was just Hollywood being fucking Hollywood.
Well, they
So
wanted the crazy, flashy character. They needed the flashy, badass character. And right now in the X-Men comics, which I don't read, but I keep up on the news because I like to torture myself. She's
You
one of
like
the
pain?
buffest. Yeah, I like pain and suffering in a very sad way. I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to X-Men, sadly.
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
in the not in the Chris Claremont way either. She is one of the most popular characters because she's like almost OP at this point, overpowered. She's flashy. She's a bitch. She's now the leader of the New Mutants. Yeah, and I don't know why they didn't pick Karma either. She really checks off every single box that Lefty Hollywood drools over. So the fact that they didn't put her in it blew my mind.
it's because they couldn't dress her in a potato bag.
Oh.
You didn't get that?
oh, I get
No, I'm
it.
sorry. I didn't get
Oh,
it.
it's a joke about the Last Jedi. It's all right.
Oh my God, Rose Tico. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so stupid.
it's all right. It's all right. But no,
That's become kind of a phrase that you
Oh
know.
God, because she's Vietnamese too. Oh Jesus, it's all coming to me now.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you know, yeah.
Poor Kelly Marie Tran. She's an attractive woman.
Oh yeah,
That was so fucked.
dude, Vietnamese women can be really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the fuck?
Steve just handed me the 4 issues for the Magic Limited series. He went and dug them up for me to have for the show right now.
Oh yeah, it's a great freaking miniseries. I mean, Magik in general as a character is really fascinating. I mean, here's the deal: all of the New Mutants are really fascinating characters.
Yes.
So the movie just does such an injustice to them. And the other thing is at certain points the CGI gets a little bit what the fuck. There's some good CGI here and there, and then there's some like just talking about the cinematography. It's like ugh, when you're looking at the Demon Bear looks kind of retarded. And then the other thing was I think there was an intention to have Warlock in the movie. But I think their CGI budget basically ran out, and Warlock would have to be a pretty crazy CGI endeavor, just because of the way he's drawn in the comics. If you were
But
trying
you
to
can't have
do something like
Warlock without Cypher.
yeah, that's the other
That's
problem is they didn't have Cypher, and I think they were tapped out on white guys.
God.
I think
Okay,
they
Somebody
had one, and it was like that. That's our limit. If we go any more, we're gonna get fucking attacked by the blue check marks.
Okay, so yeah, Janelle.
I was gonna say somebody pointed out in the chat there was one New Mutant that we missed that showed up in issue 8, and that was Magma, who was my favorite character.
Oh, I actually did a review series on Magma's origin. Yeah, dude, the freaking Roman Nova saga is awesome.
Dude, it introduces Selene, who I thought was one of the best villains to come
Oh
out
yeah.
of the Claremont era. A psychic vampire, an immortal psychic vampire.
Oh, dude, yeah, Celine in the Uncanny X-Men run when she's like fighting New Phoenix, Rachel, like holy
Mhm.
shit, those issues were awesome. Yeah.
Okay, okay, but now before we go any further, I want you to tell the audience what you told me about why you had to go back and watch the ending.
Oh, because basically by the time fucking the Demon Bear showed up and they were fighting the Demon Bear the entire time, I basically had walked out of the damn film, the movie. I was so pissed off. I was like, I don't want to see this anymore.
Yeah, you
I
were
mean,
so pissed off you walked out.
yeah, I couldn't take it. And this was in the middle of the pandemic too. So I had my mask on. I was sitting here like a retard, in this freaking theater with my damn mask on. And I'm just like, I hate everything about this experience right now. I'm watching my favorite comic book series get basically raped on screen. I'm wearing this goddamn mask. And, the theater's basically empty. What the fuck am I doing here? But yeah, no, that was a fun time. That was a really fun time. So I ended up having to go back on like pirate sites and just watch the ending, which was dumb too, because the original Demon Bear was actually killed by the New Mutants, whereas like in this one, it just kind of disappears because I realize what you are now, and I'm not afraid of you. Blah 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 blah.
Really, that's the ending.
Yeah, pretty much. The theme of
Dude,
the theme that I think they were trying to go for was like confronting your fears or something like that, which I didn't understand how the movie actually tried to accomplish that, but again, I mean, you guys could. I strongly recommend you watch it on a pirate site, but you guys can go watch it and come to your own conclusions. My conclusion was I hated it with a burning passion. I don't want to revisit it anymore. It's like
I'll
the
take
Last
your word
Jedi.
for it, man. I ain't gonna watch it. I
I
can't. I
agree.
think I'm gonna be so pissed that I'd throw something at my computer screen.
Yeah, I mean, it just I I to, here's the deal. There were some aspects of it where like you knew they put the work in, but the whole contraption with there's a character in there called Dr. Reyes, and she's the one who basically brings them all together in this Essex
Wait, wait, wait.
corporation.
Did you say Dr. Reyes as in
Yeah.
Dr. Cecilia Reyes?
Yep.
She's from the X-Men. She showed up in the mid 2000s.
Yep.
And oh my
Yep.
God, this movie is a clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's a fuck up. And so she basically is the one running this Essex Corporation bullshit school with freaking that you think is Professor Xavier's school because the way that they do the set designs make it look like it, and then you realize later on they're basically being put in an insane asylum. But yeah, and then there's the forced romance between Rain and Danny, which by the way, I so here let me kind of transition slightly away from the movie because I'm getting depressed and towards more of the comic. And let me explain why Danny and Rain don't work out. And if you read the original series, even in the first issue, they did become friends initially because in the first number one issue, as Ginell was pointing out, Danny kind of fucks up in the first issue and she activates her power of bringing out your worst fears on Karma. And if you remember, we were talking about Karma, basically got raped on a boat by Thai pirates. This basically re-traumatizes Karma, and she flips out and just becomes absolutely pissed at Danny during that entire time, basically claiming like you're basically evil. How could you do that? And it really she feel like Danny feels like extreme guilt for what she did, which kind of endears her as a very human character early on. And she's so upset about what she did that when they later go to the danger room, she ends up choking and she's unable to like perform. She actually runs away because she's so frustrated with herself. And when she runs away, Rain is the one that comes over to kind of like cheer her up and say, hey, you know what, everything, everybody has their own problems that they got to deal with, et cetera, et cetera. I think, ultimately you should stick around. I consider you a good friend, all this other stuff. And it sets the premise that Claremont has that they're very close friends. But throughout the entire run, Claremont very heavily, suggests that Danny and Rain are very heterosexual. They
Yeah.
crush all the time on guys, especially Danny. Danny is like very notorious for flirting with a lot of guys that she runs into. I think there's like a really hilarious scene where I think this was like a crossover between Cloak and Dagger and New Mutants, where Sam actually opens the door on Danny when she's like naked and dressing, and then he freaks out like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry, my bad," right? And then she basically takes the opportunity to flirt the shit out of him while he's rocketing her to a location. He's getting like so frustrated the entire time. It's really, really good. People don't realize that the New Mutants were basically a cursor or a precursor to Harry Potter and many of the style of manga storytelling that we see today. But it was an American comic book, and people don't realize that a lot of the stuff that we're like always asking about American comics, like,
Yeah.
oh, why can't they do slice of life stuff? Why can't they do other genre? They actually did. They just kind of had to do it with superheroes on the side.
Well, I'm going to bring again just, with My Hero Academia being so popular, there was Naruto. We've got, what is, you were saying, Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
It would have been the obvious choice with New Mutants.
Yeah, no, I mean, they
But
should have continued it down that track. I'm sorry, go
instead,
ahead.
as we've got here, is from unqualified. Owen Lister says, so comics. So in the New Mutants movie, all the characters are murderers. Hollywood doesn't know what the definition of a hero is today, do they? And I would have to agree because, again, back I said before we went on air, all this stuff about Harley Quinn that I've been researching, it has basically come down to getting rid of our heroes and replacing them with villains, villain worship.
Because that's what these people are. I
Yeah,
mean,
they are
think about all
villains.
the stuff they get caught up in, or the scandals you hear about. They're trying to normalize deviant villain behavior by making villains anti-heroes or heroes. really kind of gross.
Yeah, you know,
Actually,
well,
no,
you're
it's not
looking at
kind of, it really is gross.
yeah, yeah, well, Disney did make a movie where they tried to make a hero out of a woman who kills puppies.
Oh God, yeah, Cruella.
Yeah,
Well,
they
they've been on
tried
a
to
streak
make her
for
a
a
hero.
while, making villains into heroes. Look at I can't say it.
Maleficent, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
They
mean
redid
that is
Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty is now it's no, the bitch deserved it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, by the way,
They even made Sleeping Beauty's father a rapist in that
Yeah.
movie. It was like what?
yeah, I kind of I checked out of regular Disney movies. I think at like I believe Frozen. I watched Frozen with my niece because I was babysitting her, and I was like, "This movie is actually kind of fucked up." If you think about the
Oh,
message it's
Frozen.
trying to bring across.
Well, the thing that really upsets me about Frozen is that it's based or was supposed to be based on the Snow Queen, which is a Hans Christian Andersen story, which is in fact a real heroine's journey. The story is about this boy and girl who grew up together as great friends, and as they start to hit puberty, the boy starts to grow cold when he finds this older woman who entices him. And yeah, his essentially a splinter gets in his an ice splinter gets in his eye, and his heart grows cold, and he becomes obsessed with the Snow Queen and goes off with her. And the girl has to go on this journey, and she meets mentors and people to help her, and she finally makes it to the boy who's under the thrall of the Snow Queen, and brings warmth back to his heart, and he finds himself again. And I mean, the metaphor there of what that's about is so obvious, and they totally changed that. They made the Snow Queen the hero.
Well, I watched the making of Frozen because I was really interested to see how they based it off the Snow Queen, and it was so far from the Snow Queen. The original version of the movie, it was the Snow Queen. And it was going to be the hero's journey, and they were still going to be it was still going to be Anna and Elsa were going to be sisters, but the man that Anna had fallen in love with falls under Elsa's spell, and it was going to
Yeah,
be that heroine's journey. And in fact, this was what was really crazy. They were going to try and get Amy Winehouse to be the voice of Elsa because they wanted to have the more bluesy jazz type singing for the character of Elsa, and then somebody else swept in is like, no, they need to be sisters, and the true love needs to come from their sisterly bond, and blah 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 blah, and they completely rewrote it.
Honestly, the thing that stuck out was just I finished the movie with my niece and I was like, so men bad. All right.
Yeah, that's what it turned into was men bad. Instead of it being the original journey, it was men bad, men stupid, girl good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead of being an inspiring story about, a character growing and becoming a real heroine, it's just how dare you have a penis?
Yeah, really. The fact that they named the villain after Hans Christian Andersen really
Holy
told me
crap!
how they felt.
Really?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, we named the villain Hans after Hans Christian Andersen to honor him. I'm like, way to shit all over him. Seriously, the character
Yeah.
that they made, the guy's a sociopath.
These people are actively trying to destroy our myths and our morals, and they need to fucking die.
Yeah. I mean, just
Yeah.
don't give them money. Just stop giving them money.
Yeah, actually, I refuse to. That's why I haven't seen a lot of this stuff. Is I will not give Disney a cent.
So here's some. I saw. I think some people were asking, how they can get a hold of the old New Mutants, and if you want to, do it the legal way, I think the New Mutants classics, the trade paperbacks, are
Yeah,
the best way to do it. Just because you can get like I think 8 or 10 issues in one trade paperback. It's the recoloring is mastered. It was done in I think 2007, so that was before Marvel lost their fucking shit and censored everything that they reprint.
they're
Uh,
censoring all their reprints.
yeah, all the reprints are getting censored. So, for example,
Then
you remember the 2 issues where Katie Pride says the N word? Gone.
wait, which issues were those?
The one where there's one where she's Shadowcat and she gets like basically accosted by a bunch of gangsters and they're talking smack about her being a mutant, and then she uses basically an example of her saying using the N word and whatnot. as like,
Oh,
hey, it's
okay.
the same concept. And then there's another one in the New Mutants where it's actually it's Claremont being a little lefty, but actually in a good way. Where God damn, I forgot the number of the issue, but it was actually about suicide. God, it was a freaking really good issue too. Fuck, I can't remember the number. But she says the N word too, along with a bunch of other, derogatory terms as like a warning to people, like, hey, don't just use these words casually. They mean something. Usually something very hurtful, right? But it was mainly, Claremont kind of getting on his freaking soapbox. But still, you can't even do that nowadays, just because
So
everything's
they
so
they
censored.
censored the white Jewish girl.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well,
God.
Chris Claremont was on multiple occasions had criticized the Jewish community for their own bigotry, and I
Yeah.
guess they didn't like that.
Nope.
I mean, that was the whole thing with Magneto. He became the thing he hated. That was
Yeah.
what was
That
so
was the most
groundbreaking.
brilliant thing about Magneto was that he turned into the thing he hated the most.
Yeah.
Okay, Neostar asks, man, is there any story that isn't ruined by postmodern moral relativism? Well, Neostar, right there, you see it says, buy and review my graphic novels down. All of mine have not been ruined.
Yeah, no, check them out. And, if you just need a really good read and you're kind of tight on money, absolutely buy Scars.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely buy
Scars.
Scars.
Scars is, in my opinion, Ishii's best story ever. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. If anybody has not gotten it yet, get it.
Is it still like $1? I forget. Yeah, no, like guys, yeah, if you're tight on money and you just need a really good read, cannot recommend Scars enough.
Thank you.
Pick it
Thank
up.
you.
Yeah, because I know the graphic novels are a little bit
A little
higher.
pricey.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit pricier. And also, if you don't have Prime, you got to pay for the shipping and whatnot.
Although, in all fairness, let me put it this way: my graphic novels are a fuckload cheaper than all those $40 single issue Indiegogos people have been getting. Where the Indiegogo you get a 40-page comic for $40 or
Yeah.
30-page comic. No. Mine are like 125-page graphic novels for $20.
Yeah, no, definitely. You get much more of a bang for your buck. I was just thinking more people who are like tight, on the budget
Yeah.
and whatnot. Then if you are, no excuses, $1, you will be thoroughly entertained by Scars.
Thank you. I would agree. That's probably the most meaningful thing I've ever written. So
Yeah.
anyway, about New Mutants.
Yeah, so that's the movie in a nutshell. If you have to watch it, normally I don't recommend doing this, but I would pirate it. Just be honest.
I have no desire to see my youth shit on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty bad.
I don't think I could. And if I did, then my husband would just have to listen to me rant for hours after watching it, screaming and yelling about how much they fucked up New Mutants.
Well, look, if you ever actually do, hold it all in and come on the air and just do it. Just rant on the air. 'Cause you would not believe what kind of ratings that brings.
Oh yeah.
Now I think I'm going to watch it just so I can bring the ratings in. Everybody listen to Ginell rant over watching New Mutants.
See, I mean, what is your alcohol of choice?
Oh, what is my alcohol? My alcohol of choice is a tie between whiskey, scotch, and bourbon.
Oh, really?
So whatever, yeah.
Here's my recommendation. Go
Okay.
to the because you're down in SoCal, right? So go to the Ralphs or the Albertson, right? And because they still sell liquor in the stores, right?
Actually, we go to Costco because we can
Ooh.
get the good shit for
Okay.
actually really inexpensive. Yeah.
Here's what I recommend. I recommend
liquor
Four
label.
Roses single barrel bourbon.
I like Four Roses.
Yeah, get
Actually,
that
I like
single
Four
barrel.
Roses.
Yeah,
Yes.
get that single barrel. Pour yourself like a heavy pour into a tall
Oh, shit.
glass, and pirate that motherfucker. Press play and get ready for some torture.
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't know how many
God.
times I've had to tell Kat this, but she's always, well, I don't want to get all pissed off on the air. It's like, no, Kat, people love that. You're their voice. You're bringing voice to their anger. They want to hear that.
Yeah, no, dude, it's pretty bad. I mean, to be fair, here's the deal about the New Mutants. I mean, I absolutely adore the first 54 issues by Claremont, and then I think he did 4 annuals and the New Mutants special. And in addition to pretty much everything X-Men for most of the 80s, the Simonson X-Men that came afterwards is more of a mixed bag for me. And nothing against Louise Simonson. I think she's a really talented writer and editor, obviously, for how much she's accomplished in her
She's just not
career.
Chris Claremont.
Well, I think also she kind of, in my opinion, I think she phoned it in a little bit on the New Mutants compared to how much effort she put into X Factor. Because she was doing X Factor at the same time, too.
Dude, she created Apocalypse, one of the scariest X-Men villains to ever exist.
That was her creation, huh?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then, she kind of, I mean, if you look at her New Mutants run, like, again, I don't want to spoil anything. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's so fucking old. Right. In the first, couple issues, she writes Magma out of the book, and then several issues later, we go to Fall of the Mutants and she fucking kills off Cypher, and then
That was some bullshit. The way he died pissed me off.
I wasn't happy. Well, here's the deal: it's a combination of I have to be angry at Louise Simonson, but I also have to be angry at Joe Duffy because Fallen Angels was occurring around that time, and that's the reason why Warlock wasn't there to be combined with Doug, right?
Oh, and Fallen Angels was actually really good.
I like Fallen Angels. That's
because it was Cannonball. It was Cannonball, Boom Boom, Sunspot, Warlock.
Cannonball wasn't there. It was just Bobby. Oh
no, it's just Sunspot, right? Because I remember he gets the ass end of his pants burned off in front of an audience, and everybody's mocking him because they can see his butt.
Yeah. Oh man. And then it just little by little, she just started. I don't know why she did this, but for some reason, she felt the need to make them as dark as her X Factor run. And the thing about the New Mutants is they are dark, but they have to be a little bit lighthearted because they're younger, right? And then, she has like her Asgard story is pretty interesting, but she writes Danny out of the book. And at this point, I'm like, fuck, there's like nobody left of the original team.
Only Cannonball and I think it was only Cannonball at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, Wolfsbane, so Rain was
That's
still
right.
there. Yeah, because Rain was there when freaking Liefeld took it and fucked everything up. So here's the deal is, I know there's a lot of documentaries of Lee Swyman or records of Simonson being kind of pissed off when Liefeld got on the book and basically pushed her out with Bob Harris. But in some ways, unlike Claremont, Simonson kind of earned her pink slip on that one because she basically got rid of the original team and just went on a fucking tangent. And in a way, it's like, look, I in terms of like Simonson versus Liefeld, yeah, I'm going to choose Simonson because like Liefeld, at least to me, especially early Liefeld was kind of a fucking hack. And Simonson was actually an extraordinarily talented writer, but she kind of dug her own grave on that book. Whereas like I'm way more sympathetic to Claremont and how he got fucked by Harris and Jim Lee. Because Claremont was still the fucking man, and he was the reason why those books were selling what they were, not fucking Jim Lee and his goddamn freaking Zack Snyder level plots.
Well, Jim Lee was such a conniving little bitch that he just went over Claremont's head and would just take his plots to Harris, and Harris would be like, okay, I will do that instead. That's how Jim Lee got his. That's why Claremont left after the 8th issue. It was some bull, and not only that, he teamed up with what's his name, Whilce Portacio. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Both on the same titles. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how Bishop got introduced into the. He was introduced in Uncanny X-Men on the Gold team, but then he showed up for a while on the Blue team, and then that's when they fucked up Gambit's character by making him the supposed traitor of the X-Men, which was the exact opposite of what Claremont was going for. He was supposed to be a clone of Sinister. That was the whole thing. He was like a mole, and that's Claremont was like, I'm out.
Yeah. No, basically because Claremont worked in the Marvel method, right? So he did the plot script and then he would let the artist interpret it at that point. And what was going on was Jim Lee and Whilce Portacio were basically taking the plot script and they're like, I don't want to draw this. I'm going to draw whatever I want to draw. Yeah. And, Claremont would get the pages back and he'd be like, what the fuck? And then, it's funny. I actually watched a your boy Zach video where he totally misinterprets the whole thing because Richard's such a freaking fanboy of all those Image guys. And he basically said,
God, don't get me started on him.
Yeah, it's like, look at what Claremont's doing. He's just putting like a million word balloons everywhere. Look at all these words he's covering up Jim and Whilce's art. And I'm like, he's doing that because Whilce and Jim are fucking him over. Because basically what they're doing is turning in art pages that don't follow the actual plot that he outlined to him. So instead, he would basically be like, well, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm just going to write a fucking novel here and just cover up your shit because you guys don't want to do what I told you to do. So
I would have done the same.
Yeah.
Jim Lee is the one that brought back Magneto after he had his happy fucking ending and could
Yeah.
leave in peace.
Yeah.
Because Jim Lee wanted to be the one to write Magneto and make him a villain. Basically Jim Lee was just rehashing all of Chris Claremont's shit, but it was fan fiction to him. It was his fan fiction of Claremont's stories, and it both all those Image guys were all style, no substance.
Well, doesn't that kind of sum up almost all of Image except Sam Keith? All of them were doing fanfic. I mean, what was Cyberforce? It was fucking X-Men's fanfic.
Oh,
What
yes.
was
That was really bad.
X-Men's
So was
fanfic.
Cyberforce, and then Liefeld's book, where he actually basically drew himself as
Oh,
the character
God.
Shaft.
Yeah.
Youngblood. Youngblood.
Youngblood is
Bad.
Oh man! So I actually did a review series where I go over the first issues of all of the Image comics, and Jesus Christ, they do not age well at fucking all. Holy shit, they're bad.
Can I interject for just 1 minute? Speaking
for
of putting in inserts, do you notice that Shaft and Shatterstar look exactly the same, and they both look like also Rob Liefeld? He was
Yeah.
doing self inserts of himself as these supposedly badass characters. I cannot stand the character Shatterstar. I really wish that Mojo would have, like, I don't know, shot his embryo into a furnace or some shit. That character sucks. They completely fucked up Dazzler and Longshot's kid. Like, how could they fucking do that?
Well, do you like what happened in Deadpool 2 then?
Yes! Oh god, Steve and
I
I
thought
were
that was the
laughing
best
so
moment.
hard!
I thought that was the best part of the whole film.
I started choking on my popcorn because I was laughing so hard. And, oh my god, it was so good. All that turquoise blood going everywhere was beautiful.
Here, I see a comment from Owen Lister. So was Spawn the only good Image character or comics character?
No,
I like how you think Spawn's a good character.
No, I would actually say the Max was the book that really should have gotten the credit.
Yeah,
See,
I mean,
it was
if
so
I
good,
have
no one
to be-
remembers it as the Image.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I said it was so good, no one remembers that it's an Image book.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
But
You know
what
what
were
was...
you gonna say?
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Janelle.
I was going to say there's another Image book that was really good, and it was done by Jay Lee, but because it was so good and not flashy enough, it didn't go very far. And it was called Hellspawn. And it was about a woman who an angel fell in love with her, so he comes down, has sex with her, but then God's like, "Oh, bad angel," and strips him of his wings and throws him into hell. And she's a Catholic girl, so she has the baby, puts the kid up for adoption, is basically in penance for the rest of her life. And this poor guy does not understand that he's half angel and is being chased down by now his demonic father, who's also trying to recapture his the woman. And this guy can see demons and shit everywhere, and he's like going insane. And it was done with Jay Lee's really super creepy like ink blot art, you know, with all the streaks and the blots and like
Yeah.
everything's really shaded. And it was so good, and it just didn't take off because it wasn't Youngblood, it wasn't Spawn, it wasn't Cyberforce.
You know, actually, that's kind of the same thing with the Max. Is that the Max, for the most part, had a cult following, and then it lucked out and got that MTV series. But yeah, it's weird how that book really got overlooked.
Yeah,
mean,
Max
do you
was
guys-
good.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to be fair. When I went over all of the Image Comics first issues, I got to give credit to Eric Larson because Savage Dragon was actually readable.
Is this before it became like a hardcore porn book? I know it was more softcore
here's the
porn
deal.
back in the day.
The early Savage Dragon is actually readable. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the greatest thing ever, but you know, in terms of like actually being a comic that you can sit down and somewhat enjoy, it was there. You know, you have to give Eric Larson some credit for that. Now the later Savage Dragon is another story, especially when he kills off the first Savage Dragon. I was like, what the fuck?
That's not even the original Savage Dragon anymore?
No, it's a new Savage Dragon, the one that's banging the Asian chick. Like,
I just remember seeing the one issue where he comes so hard he blows her off of her and she falls down upside down and the cum is dripping from her vagina into her mouth as she's laughing hysterically.
And
Yeah.
this is the same fuckhead who's criticizing characters for having big tits.
Yeah,
Yep.
somewhere in the last 10 or 15 years, Eric Larson lost his fucking mind.
Yeah.
But I will say the original the original Savage Dragon run is actually, it's actually decent, just to be fair. To be fair, right?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I
Yeah,
mean, you're saying it's
it's not bad.
coherent.
Yeah, it's actually a story. Whereas like the first couple issues of Spawn, what the fuck, and Youngblood is really bad. It's really really bad. And then what was it? What's the other one I reviewed? Like I brain dumped them so fast. That's how bad they were. Fucking Wildcats. Yeah, Wildcats was shit.
Oh, shit.
And
Oh, the only reason that book was popular is because every pubescent boy that was reading that fucking book had a boner for voodoo. That is the only reason that book was popular.
I
And that is
didn't.
a hill I'm willing to die on.
For me, as the adolescent boy, she wasn't the one that I thought was the hot one. Actually, maybe because I'm fucked up, I liked Zealot. I
Oh,
thought
you
she
like the
was
Priscilla
short
hotter.
hair
was
lady?
actually, I thought she was much more hot than Voodoo.
Yeah.
Voodoo
Okay.
was
So
too
we're on the same
sleazy
page.
for me.
Exactly. I agree. Too sleazy.
I thought everything
Too.
didn't make any sense, and
Well,
it was
yeah, it
like,
didn't.
yeah, no, it was basically like Jim Lee art, buy it.
So
Oh,
somebody
there was
here
Gen
mentioned Witchblade.
13. That's
Yeah.
the other one I said, Gen 13.
Yeah, that was the freaking hot or the hot girl comic.
Yeah.
Yeah, freaking Wildcats, and then oh god, what's the other? Yeah, Cyberforce was another one that was basically an X-Men ripoff that fucking
That
sucked.
Cyberforce sucked.
Oh yeah, it was fucking shit.
Well, they had the character Cyblade, who was literally fucking Psylocke. She had purple hair. She was a rich British chick that was a telepath that could make psychic weaponry and was an expert in martial arts. Are you fucking kidding me?
And the first issue has them doing security for a mutant who wants to run for political office.
Yep.
And what is his power? He's purple.
Yep.
That's it. He was purple.
Well, dude, who's like they have one guy who's basically a Cable ripoff, but Mark Sylvester's like, but I'll give him an extra arm.
No, he gave him 2 extra arms, so he had 3 arms on one side. Yeah.
And then
Yeah, that way I'm not ripping off Cable.
weights with the cybernetic arm as if that's going to do anything.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? And then his Domino ripoff is like, I'm gonna make Domino, but she's gonna be the Flash. God
Oh,
damn it.
Velocity.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck?
Was it Ripclaw was the Wolverine ripoff. He was like a cross between what's his name, Warpath and Wolverine, and then they actually made a character that looked like Wolverine, and his name was Troll, and his power was that he was really fucking short and hairy.
Great. Yeah, it was fucking. Oh god, Cyberforce is terrible. Actually, another one was pretty bad. I think that was the end of my series. Was god damn it, Wetworks. Yeah, that was the one by Will Sprotasio that fucking took forever because he had like family issues and whatnot. And then when you
That
actually
one
read
pisses me off because
Dude,
that
one-
had
yeah,
that had the ability and capacity to be one of the best books, and it was fucking dumb.
Oh, dude, it was super dumb. It was basically GI Joes become Gold and Silver Surfers.
Yes.
Fuck.
One of them ended up becoming like the living embodiment of chi energy, and nobody could touch him except for the chick with the cybernetic arms. And then there was the one guy named Dozer, and his power was to get really big. And so the Night Tribes actually blew him up and like killed him, and then hollowed him out and made him a temple.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like, what the fuck?
Wait.
dumb.
I thought that they were like G.I. Joe, but they had like T-1000 skin over top of them.
Well, the way that Will Sprotasio draws them, they basically look like Gold and Silver Surfers.
Ah, yeah, they do.
Yeah, it was a fucking. It's funny because Wilson is usually a really talented artist, but questionable on design. Like, holy shit, it was such a dumb fucking design decision because it's like, okay, they're GI Joes, they're all dressed in military garb. They all they all literally look the same because Wilson was going for realistic, so they all look the same. So you have no fucking clue which one is which when you're reading the first issue. And you're just sort of like, at least the G.I. Joes, like, they knew that they had to make them visually distinct in order for them to pop out as characters, right? But he makes them all look the same. And then they get their superpowers, and what does he do? He makes them all look the fucking same. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
Wolf asks about Pitt. Did anybody read Pitt?
I did.
I didn't.
I didn't either. I'm
It's
sorry.
a typical image book. It's amazing art. I think Dale Keown is... I would say Dale Keown is probably like tied for the best of the Image artists. I have a soft spot for Mark Silvestri, even though Cyberforce is
Oh, he's a great
fucking
artist.
retarded. Yeah, no,
I
Mark
love his
Silvestri is an
art.
amazing artist. Yeah, I love his art, but goddamn, Cyberforce is retarded.
No
He
right,
is
just draw.
He saved himself with Witchblade. That was actually
that's fair.
the early runs of that book were really good. Between him and what's his name? The guy that passed away 10 years ago was a fantastic artist and made Fathom, which was another excellent Image book. Michael Turner. Michael Turner. And also Randy Green, I think, was the other one. Those were the three artists on Witchblade, and that was actually a really good book.
Yeah, I think the Gen 2 Image comics, like the second wave, ended up being generally better because I think that a lot of people were listening to the criticism of the first gen, and they were trying to improve. But I think at that point it was too late because that was like late '90s and Marvel Knights was coming out, and Joe Quesada kind of like knew what was fucked up about Image and knew how to make Marvel take advantage of what was fucked up at Image. But the first gen is just really laughably bad when you go and you reread it. Yeah, it was Jesus Christ. Yeah, the biggest problem with Pit is it's beautiful art, but it's literally something when you go through the first, I think, what is it? It's an 8-issue run or something like that. It really should have never been released as a comic book. It should have been released as a graphic novel because the first fucking issue, they spend like 16 goddamn pages on a biker fight scene. And it's like, what the fuck? And then by the time they're done with that scene, and it's like, we get it. Pitt is really fucking strong. They have like 5 pages or so to kind of get the rest of the plot going. And then you're like, what the shit? And it's one of those things where like the Dale Keown is a profoundly good artist, but the writer he was working with, I think, didn't realize what he needed to accomplish in the first issue to introduce the character correctly. So it is a solid run, I would say. I think it's definitely worth revisiting, but in a comic book format, I'm not really fond of it.
The thing is often there's a lot of talk about how the 90s were the worst of times for comics. But it's weird because in a sense, no, it was the best of times and worst of times because you had the Image Revolution with all this incredible art and shit storytelling. And then you had Vertigo, which was just fucking amazing. And it's kind of weird to realize, that it's like they just divided out. Okay, we're going to put all the great artists here, but screw storytelling. And we're going to put all the good writers over here.
Well, I mean, the 90s was more of like a mixed bag in a way. Like, I don't think it's the worst time, but I mean, I definitely wouldn't put it on a pedestal
now
like some
it's
other
the
people
worst
did.
time.
Yeah. Now is fucking like dog shit, pure, unabated, freaking the kind of dog shit that you're like, oh God, I got to pick that up. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'm going to do, we had the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Dark Age, that's what they called the 90s because everyone went dark. This is the dog shit age, as dubbed by Unqualified Comics.
I've heard the 90s called to fit with instead like the metals and like precious stones. It's called the Obsidian Age now. I've heard
Oh, that works. That definitely works. It was all dark.
Obsidian, yeah. I mean, the aughts were pretty solid, I would say.
No, I would argue that the aughts, we were going into a new golden age. And this is just from being on the inside at the time, that we were definitely going towards something really great. The writing was great. The art was great. We were getting mainstream acceptance. And then, bam, we hit about 2010, 2012. They just decided, no, we're going to skew young. We're going to market directly to millennials. We're going to go full Hollywood. And it all collapsed.
Dude, that's when I was going to say that's when Witchblade and the Darkness and Image collapsed. Like right there. That's why I said they were really good. At that point, Michael Turner, I think, had bailed on Mark Silvestri and took Fathom with him and started Aspen Comics, which was also really good because I believe Soulfire came out in the early 2000s after he bailed, which is one of his best comics, I think. I don't know if you guys read Soulfire or not.
No, I haven't. The aughts, I read Civil War and I read a lot of Jeff Johns stuff during the aughts. And then the other thing, what's really fascinating, like it's funny that you mentioned that around 2010, 2012, this shit went, off the rails.
Right.
Because it kind of reminds me of a Razor Fist video where he was just like, And it might just be Razor Fist because he has such a fucking burning hatred for Mark Waid's Daredevil run. But
Yeah.
it was just like basically
Sorry.
like the real cause of everything is Mark Waid's Daredevil run because that came out in 2012, and everything after in Marvel went to shit.
Dude,
Do you
he's
guys really want to
right.
hear what went wrong? I can tell you. I can actually tell you because I was there. But it would take a little while.
No,
Do
it's
you
all good,
mind?
man. Yeah,
I
no,
want to
go
hear.
for it.
No,
Let's do it.
please
Let's
explain.
do it.
Okay, in the aughts, we were seeing mainstream acceptance. Books were beginning to get mainstream acceptance. Comics were becoming more than just superheroes, it was becoming a legit medium. You were getting this great mixture of art. We were doing other genres as well as just it was no longer just the superhero comics. Manga was exploding. There was a lot of really good material coming out in superheroes and genres. And with those writers, specifically like Warren Ellis and a few of the others, but Ellis is one of the worst defenders, they started inviting in all these left-leaning, politically minded, Gail Simone and Lee Hernandez and all these
You're
really
talking about the Portland comic mafia. They all
Oh
right.
came
yeah.
from Portland.
Yeah, they were all beginning to get invited in, and they brought their shitty politics. I mean, Gail Simone basically got in on refrigerators, which was basically a bullshit argument that
Oh,
wasn't
women in
true.
refrigerators. Yeah.
Right, and it was what was it, comics, or was it CBR that did it? Comic book resources that whole crowd started to infiltrate and start push their politics. Then Hollywood got interested, and Hollywood flooded money in, and then we got Hollywood politics thrown in on top of that. And then Hollywood said, you know what? No, the real money's with millennials. There aren't enough Gen Xers, because that's really who was buying it at the time, was Gen Xers. And so they're like, no, we've got to skew younger. They're into this woke shit. And they started hiring all these younger girls out of college to be editors. They started bringing all these politically minded people. They started doing, oh, it should just be high concept stuff that can be instantly turned into a movie and easily marketable. Nothing deep, nothing too well thought out. Just something that they can merchandise instantly. And it just started spiraling down into garbage. And I remember when there were battles within DC over, oh, well, is Harley Quinn going to stay this, character? And I bring this up again because I've been going over it, and I was there at the time. I was doing actually a Cat and I illustrated a Catwoman story around the time this debate was happening in DC. Was well, is Harley Quinn going to start dressing like a hooker or not, or is she going to remain kind of this kind of tragic character?
Oh, isn't that
And
Jimmy Palmiotti that did that?
well, Jim Lee was actually at the forefront of it,
Ugh.
but Palmiotti
Of
and
course he would.
Connor are largely responsible for a lot of that shit. Yes, but Jim Lee was at the forefront of it,
Yeah.
and but it was really this whole split of going between, are we going to continue doing these books that are quality books that anybody can read, that is aimed towards multiple audiences, or is it all going to be the lowest common denominator, skewed very young, that can be turned into PG and PG-13 movies? And they saw what the kids like today, woke, and that's what they did. They just went hook, line, and sinker, full woke. Hollywood bought out all these different companies, and it just went to complete shit. And I knew something was critically wrong when this is when I was with Archaea, and Hollywood had pretty much taken over, thoroughly taken over Comic Con, San Diego Comic
Hmm.
year. Comic Con, every year I'd go in after this point and say, okay, how we would time it. How long would it take before we actually saw something related to comics? And at first it was okay, you'd go in through the doors and it would take about 3 minutes before you actually saw anything that even remotely had to do with comics. Then it was 5 minutes, then it was 10 minutes, and then after a while it was, well, the comics were all shoved in the back and it was all movies. And you were getting stuff like, well, what's the new fall lineup for NBC?
Oh, I
And
remember that. I remember when that started going down, when they started having shows show up to Hall H that had nothing to do with
right.
comics.
Yeah.
And I remember Kat and I were at this party with for Archaea, and usually these gatherings had always been a bunch of artists and writers, and it was the crowd, this crowd. We got to this party, and it was not that crowd. It was a bunch of really sleazy, overweight producers in cheap suits and Hawaiian shirts, smoking cigars, doing coke, with hookers on their arms, drunk out of their fucking mind. There were girls getting painted and being chased around by what's his name, Bam Margera. It
Ugh.
became a Hollywood debauchery. And the weird thing is, this is the crowd that brought in the woke shit, okay? This crowd is the one that suddenly decided they were all feminist. And this is what's going on behind the scenes. And the thing that stood out to me is one guy wanders up to one of actually was Alex Ekman Lawn, a great artist, but socially very shy, like a lot of creators. And this producer just walks up to him, and he's got two whores on his arm, and he's smoking a cigar, and he's got this gold chain in his hairy chest, and his Hawaiian shirt's open. And his, what I like about you comics guys, you have the ideas, and you take my shit and you make it look beautiful. I make the shit and you make it beautiful, and I make the money. And that's why I love you comics guys. It's like, oh God, please get me out of here. I was like, this can't be real. It really is. And we go in the bathroom, and Bam Margera is having sex with like idiot cosplayers, and it's like, yeah, this
Oh,
isn't Comic-Con anymore.
I got cosplayer stories for you.
Oh yeah.
Because well, yeah, okay, Steve and I are not cosplayers, but one of our friends that we have known since high school. I don't know if anybody knows who Rana McInerney is. She was the face and body model for Samara and Mornith in Mass Effect series.
Oh, okay.
So she got popular. It was really exciting for me when, because I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. When she said that she got that role, I was like, holy shit, and I went nuts. And she would tell everybody that her friends from high school were going batshit. So she would actually dress up as Samara at the convention. She'd get invited, and she'd do autographs and stuff like that, take pictures and sell stuff, and so she got into the cosplay crowd. So we're at WonderCon one year. Steve and I are there, and we're hanging out with her. And she's like, "Well, I'm going to the cosplay party." And Steve and I were like, "Hey, can we just see how the other half lives?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." And we went, and it was the weirdest fucking party that we had ever been to. Like, this is when people started doing, like, their heads were shaved, like, the
Yeah.
side head that was starting to show up in the girls. And you know, everybody was like still kind of in their cosplay mode. And like, this is the same year that, what was that show that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel about the cosplayers with Yaya Han?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, basically the women that were like, look at my awesome tits instead of like actually cosplaying. And we were there for like 5 minutes, and Steve and I just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, we're out. And what was so funny though, Rana's not that type of person, but I mean, she was a cosplayer, so she met all those people. And it was really, the only thing that I thought was cool was that we were like maybe 2 feet away from Gary Oldman, who was there hanging out with some people, because some of the movie stars that were there for WonderCon were also there, like, because there was also producers and stuff. And it was when G4 was still around, like Attack of the Show and
Mm-hmm.
all those guys. And so that was like the coolest part, was like, hey man, there's Gary Oldman. And then we're like, we're getting the fuck out of here. And we left. But yeah, like we got to see it on the cosplayer end, and it was really weird. And then after that, like all those cosplayers took off and got their own shows, and like brought a lot of woke shit to Comic Con. And then these same women who were like showing off their bodies were all of a sudden like, it's rape if you look at me and you
Yeah.
lust for me. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You're wearing pasties
Well, they would
with
pull that shit.
tassels.
They
And
would
you
pull
say
that
you're,
shit,
yeah,
right?
and there was a chick that had pasties on with tassels, with this like Swarovski crystal outfit, and she claimed she was Deja Thoris, and she was being interviewed about how she didn't like men looking at her. I'm like, you're wearing fucking pasties, bitch.
And then after the facts, they'd go to these parties with the producers who had hands all over them. They were so full of
Yes,
shit.
Yeah. Not to go on
yeah.
a tangent, but I have a great idea, Ishi, for the next Monday, or maybe the next
Yeah.
next Monday. You should have Ginell and Fiona Wolf on to talk about Mass Effect.
Oh, sure. You
I'll do
want
it.
to?
I'll do it. Oh my god, I'll do it.
Well, I know Fiona Wolf is a hardcore man. I'm a big fan of Mass Effect as well, which is why it's really tragic where that series is gone. But still,
Yeah.
you need other people as well on here.
Oh my god,
Fiona,
do
do you
not.
want
Oh my god, that fucking ending. That ending. Like, I wanted
Yeah.
to throw my controller through my TV. I was so angry. I had tears. Like, my husband was just like, okay, I'm backing away. I'm backing away.
Oh, Wolftan likes Mass Effect as well. Oh, cool. Yeah, no, you should rotate
Fiona,
some people in here.
well, that's what I want to do. I'd really like to make it more of a kind of we rotate and share and get different people in because you guys are all very fun. I did try the 5 people on air thing, and I don't think that's a good idea. It doesn't work. I think after about 3, 2 is ideal. 2 other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, Fiona, are you still in the audience?
Oh, I just know, like, I'm on Minds, and she just complains about Mass Effect all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know. Fucking
I
fucked.
I wasn't as hard of a hardcore fan, I guess, as her because I refused to buy Andromeda. Like, I just saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, this game is gonna be shit, and I did.
Yeah.
And I was right. I was right.
No, I don't buy. I can't remember the last video. I think the last video game I bought was Devil May Cry 5, and that was only because I am like. There are 2 companies that will, if they do the right things, still convince me to buy their shit, and that is Marvel and Capcom. And even then, I'm just like, they do freaking rail me all the time. Though I think Capcom less so, just because they're so Japanese.
I used to be a pretty hardcore Devil May Cry fan as well. And I got the 5th game, and I got 15 minutes into it. I was like, yeah, no.
And I actually like Devil May Cry 5 personally, but mainly because it was a return to like DMC 3, and I wasn't really a big fan of 4 or the reboot. I hate the reboot. Ugh. But anyway,
I didn't touch the reboot with the 10-foot pole.
Okay,
I kind of
Fiona.
liked 4, but I didn't like that they were adding in a new character. I would have played with old Dante.
yeah.
Okay, Fiona, real quickly. Monday, 7:30. I will send you the link about an hour, a half hour before. You log on. You and Ginell can tear it a new one. We'll do Mass Effect.
Yay! I'm excited.
Yeah. No, Mass Effect's another great one to rant about. Like, god damn, that shit was fucked up.
Yeah, yeah.
What killed me is you had the first game, which was a true space RPG.
It was a
And then
classic.
it was fucking amazing. Like,
Yeah.
my husband said that the worst time he ever had with me playing a game franchise, I always thought it was Fallout. He said, no, I disappeared when Mass Effect games would come out. Like,
The first Mass Effect is a classic.
Oh yeah.
oh God,
One of the
it's
best games
so
ever made.
good. And I'm a Tally stan, Zora. I'm a huge Tally stan, followed by Garrus, and then followed by Rex. I can't stand Liara.
So basically, you like the aliens. Fuck anyone that's human.
Dude, I played Broshep and I romanced the fuck out of Tally. I did not care if I was giving this girl like a deadly allergic reaction. I was gonna tap that. Then when I played Femshep, I went after Garrus.
Yeah. No, actually, you know what?
Cat did
Yeah,
the same thing.
Yeah, do
Oh,
a
you're
Mass Effect.
shitting me! That's awesome.
Yeah, Cat did the same thing.
Yeah,
Garrus,
do a Mass.
yeah.
Sorry, good.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, do a Mass Effect stream, and then if you ever want to do a Capcom stream, let me know.
What would be
because-
the Capcom game that you'd want to?
Oh, anything from Capcom that you like, because I am a unabashed, what's the right word? Slut for Capcom games.
Well, name a few.
I
real
love
quick.
Capcom, even when they fuck me in the ass. I still like them.
Name a few.
Oh, Mega Man series, Street Fighter, Breath of Fire if you like the old school RPGs, Devil May Cry. Shit, so many goddamn fighting games.
Okay, I think Devil May Cry may be the choice because I haven't played any of these things you've mentioned.
Oh, okay. You never played Mega Man?
No. My parents don't have a Nintendo.
Oh, okay. Well, you had a
Does
Nintendo, so yeah, there was Mega Man on it, but yeah,
I
it's
didn't
fine.
get any of this stuff till I became an adult. So
Okay. Yeah, no, all of the Versus series. So I think Marvel versus Capcom is all probably relevant. To all this.
is Darkstalkers a Capcom?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
That's another one.
Darkstalkers is the
Yeah,
shit.
you and Cat.
Morgan!
You and Cat can talk about it.
Oh yeah, I love Capcom games like unabashedly. They're though to be fair, it's like being a fan of Capcom games is like being a fan of Marvel comics.
Yeah.
They have every good thing they give you is usually a trade for them getting to bend you over and bang you in the ass.
Ah.
So it's one of those really freaking abusive relationships.
Unqualified, do you have the Capcom encyclopedia of all the characters? Because my husband got me that one year for
Yeah, I do. I
Christmas.
have it.
Oh my God, I love my
Yeah.
kid stole that book from me for a while because he was hardcore into Mega Man. Like,
Yeah.
so hardcore that he got the anime and the mangas.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what this means. I honestly don't know what this means, but Kat just yelled from the living room, Jeddah is her homeboy.
No, Jed is the shit. Yeah, no,
I,
Jed is a great character. Darkstalkers is another tragic Capcom franchise that
yeah.
was really way ahead of its time, and then because it didn't sell a bunch of money, and Capcom being Capcom, they're kind of like, if it doesn't sell shitload numbers, then we're killing it. And that's like a common thing with Capcom games is like if they don't sell freaking Monster Hunter numbers, then they're gonna fucking kill it.
Okay, well, I think we could go on all night for this, but
Oh yeah.
uh, Unqualified, you were an excellent guest. I think we're going to have you back on a regular basis if you're cool with it, because you know how to get good conversations going, and you've said some of your suggestions are very, very good. So I'm open to doing these. Yeah, a Capcom episode, because yeah, we need to do some other things. I think we're getting a little stale. We should cover some stuff other than indie comics and Marvel. I think definitely talking about gaming would be a bad idea. Although I think for next week, yeah, Janelle, Fiona, we're going to do Mass Effect.
Awesome. I think I'm going to
Yeah.
play some Mass Effect after we get off the show. Like, you guys got me all
Nice.
pumped now.
Cool.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
finish Devil May Cry 5. It's really good.
Okay, I'll restart it because I'll need to start it from the beginning. I don't want to just hop in where I left off because I'll be confused.
No, it's a pleasure being on here. I don't know if I can always be on all the time.
No, I
But no, I,
understand.
I enjoy these shows.
No, I'm just thinking, whenever you're available, or if you've got a cool show idea, by all means, let me know. But we're going on an hour and a half, so I'm going to call it a night. Say good night, everyone.
All right.
Good
Thanks for having me
night.
on, Ishi. Good night.
And thank you for joining us. This was a great show, and we will see you Wednesday. Wednesday, I will be doing another writer's room. So, good night, everyone.